We're going to go live there right now. We will get back to these expensive zip codes in just a
Start
second.
up with some quick question and answers. During the question and answer, we have a microphone. If you'd like to ask a question, please step to the microphone and identify yourself, the organization that you're with, and then ask your question, and we'll get that answer to you. Again, we only have about 30 minutes, so if we don't get all your questions answered, we don't get all the information that you need with our representatives here. Mr. McCormick, right here, raise your hand, Mr. McCormick, is standing by, and he can answer any follow-up questions that you may have, or if we don't have the answers here, we'll get those for you and get back to you. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Captain Williams, the Coast Guard Federal On-Scene Coordinator.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Jennifer Williams, the Incident Commander and Federal On-Scene Coordinator for the oil spill response. Continuing in this significant response, more than 300 federal, state, and local first responders and numerous environmental cleanup contractors have arrived on scene and are actively addressing booming, and they continue to remove oil from the affected areas in the larger capacity. With hundreds of responders in the area and special equipment mobilized here, I ask the public to be mindful of the extra traffic and hazards on the highway near the affected areas where we're working. As the impact of this incident continues to unfold, we want to make sure that the public understands the direction we're headed as a responding agency. We understand that the residents of Santa Barbara are seeing the effects of the oil spilled on the beach and hazardous materials on the land, and we're actively working towards cleanup and response. I do want to manage expectations. Cleanup doesn't occur overnight. It's a long process, and I ask for your patience as we continue our work. The care and safety of everyone affected remains our top priority in the response. We urge the public to stay out of the affected areas that have been closed for the response. These sensitive areas have been closed because of health hazards of the crude in the water. Specific protective equipment needs to be worn by trained professionals to work with the oil. Many of us responding here work, live, and play in Southern California, and I understand the desire to help, but I must again stress that even the volunteers must be trained and wearing proper protective equipment. We're dedicating ourselves to efficiently deploy the best assets available and working with our emergency response partners at the federal, state, and local levels to improve the conditions throughout the region. Volunteers are asked to continue seeking information from the website and hotline for opportunities and information. The website is californiavolunteers.org. We're continuing to boom, contain, and clean oil in all environmentally sensitive areas. More than 7,700 gallons of oily water mixture has been removed as cleanup crews continue to work 24 hours a day. Specialized shoreline and offshore assessment teams are continuing to move along the coastline to monitor and direct contractors and response workers to the affected areas. To measure the breadth and the spread of pollution, we're continuing to use the daily overflights of spills and best direct our available assets. More than 3,000 feet of boom has been deployed. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Michelle Rogo, United States Environmental Protection Agency.
My name is Michelle Rogo. I'm a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on-scene coordinator, and I am co-leading the federal side of the response with Captain Williams. I'm going to talk a little bit more today about the focus of the cleanup at the pipeline release location and moving down toward the ocean. As Captain Williams mentioned, the cleanup has been moved to a 24/7 operation, and so last night we had cleanup crews in the area outside the release site, and today we're working with Caltrans on road closures so that work can continue throughout the day on the area of the culvert that passes underneath the highway. So last night crews worked with archaeological support and monitoring to excavate more than 400 yards of oil-saturated soil, starting at the far end south of the contaminated area in the actual release location. Air monitoring is being conducted in that area for both volatiles as well as for hydrogen sulfide. And this morning, crews are moving down toward the highway from the source area and continuing to excavate contaminated soil, beginning to flush out the actual culvert, the drainage pathway that led from the upland side of the highway down to the ocean, and are working to capture that oil and collect it. EPA continues to work with our federal, state, and local partners in addressing the contamination as effectively as possible, and our continued focus is the protection of human health and the environment. We appreciate the cooperation of the community, and as Captain Williams said, we respectfully request for volunteers to plug into the process where they can, rather than to go out onto beaches by themselves. We recognize the inconvenience to people over this long holiday weekend, and we hope that we can work to minimize the additional spread of contamination and continue this cleanup to return this area to a safe recreational environment.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Mr. Mark Crossland, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Office of Spill Response or Prevention.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Crossland. I'm a captain with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Office of Spill Prevention and Response. Let me begin by saying that we remain committed to working through the Unified Command for an effective and efficient response. The state continues to provide personnel, equipment, and expertise to the cleanup effort. Let me add that the people of Santa Barbara have offered tremendous support to this response, and I want to reach out and thank every one of the citizens here and the public within the Santa Barbara area. We've been very grateful for all of their efforts and concern. We are using pre-trained volunteers from the Oiled Wildlife Care Network for wildlife capture, recovery, and rehabilitation. We can report right now that we have 5 oiled brown pelicans at our wildlife care facility here in Santa Barbara area, and that's the Oiled Wildlife Care Network. And that number, again, is 877-823-6926. I'd like to remind everyone that that's not a volunteer line, so do not call that number to volunteer your services, but that is the number to use if you do discover oiled wildlife. Regarding those birds, we're allowing them to gain strength before we start the cleaning process. And the birds are being moved to our San Pedro facility, and we'll work with the media for photo opportunities on Friday. There have been a number of dead animals recovered, and these include lobsters, kelp bass, which is a marine fish, and other marine invertebrates in the area. We also have California Fish and Wildlife Natural Resource volunteers, which are helping us provide a wildlife transport support. We have stood up a volunteer unit to explore how we can safely incorporate members of the public into the response, and the Unified Command has approved the use of the California Conservation Corps crew from Camarillo, and those folks are also pre-trained to handle hazardous material response. Now, the Office of Spill Prevention and Response volunteer hotline has been activated, and that number is 1-800-228-4544. Please visit the CalSpill website for more information on opportunities. And then lastly, we know everyone greatly is concerned about the environment here, and we just ask that you respect the operation and the crews that are out there working hard to clean up the area. And please stay out of the area if you can at all costs. If you have other concerns, please use the numbers I gave to report oiled wildlife or any other concerns regarding the operations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Eric Gelstrom, State Park Superintendent.
Good morning. As of this morning, El Capitan and Refugio State beaches are now closed, and we're utilizing the parking areas at those facilities as staging areas for this response. State Park staff are now working to support our partners in this cleanup, and we're echoing the message that Please go through the proper channels if you wish to volunteer. We've got all the different connections through the websites and phone numbers that can get you where we can use you. The danger associated with this oil, we really don't want to see anyone getting hurt with good intentions. Going forward, State Parks' mission is to get these parks back open as soon as possible and to protect our natural cultural resources. And we'll be assessing the progress of this cleanup to see when we can get those parks open. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Mona Bonte, California Governor's Office of Emergency Services.
Good morning. My name is Mona Bonte. I'm the Southern Regional Administrator for the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. On behalf of Director Mark Gilladucci, our focus remains on first responders from local, state, and federal agencies, as well as the private sector, in the efforts to contain the oil and conduct cleanup operations. The State Operations Center in Sacramento and our Regional Emergency Operations Center at the Joint Forces Training Base in Los Alamitos remain active. Our deployment of emergency management, fire and rescue, and public information personnel to the Incident Command Post continues. In addition to Cal OES, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, who's here with us now, the California Coastal Commission, the California Conservation Corps, California Volunteers, and the California Department of Parks and Recreation are providing support. Yesterday, as many of you know, the governor proclaimed a state of emergency to help expedite the mobilization of all available resources and cut any delays that could impact response efforts. As the governor has said, we will do everything necessary to protect California's coastline. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Alyssa Arndt, Santa Barbara County Office of Emergency Management and Local On-Scene Coordinator.
Good morning. My name is Elsa Arndt, and I am an emergency manager with the Office of Emergency Management. Our office is the representative for the county as the local on-scene coordinator, and as the local on-scene coordinator, we are part of Unified Command and involved in the decision-making process. We also wanted to let you know all of the county resources that we have been able to include in this response. A lot of departments with fire, sheriff's department, public works, general services, and public health, just the list goes on. So we are really fortunate to be able to play a role in the response. And again, to emphasize what was requested for community volunteers, we ask that you please not report to the site, that you go through the proper channels and it's really for your own health and safety. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Patrick Hodgkins, Plains All-American Pipeline.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. Plains would like to start by thanking the dedicated responders at both the federal, state, and local levels. We are very fortunate to have these dedicated responders. Yesterday, you heard from our CEO, Greg Armstrong, who had just returned yesterday from an on-ground site visit. Today, he's currently participating in an overflight review of the areas that were affected by this unfortunate accidental release. Yesterday's Greg's comments, he provided an overview of the situation, including our deepest regret of the incident and the impact to the environment, and just as important, the inconvenience and disruption it has caused to the many residents and fine citizens of this area. And I want to refocus and assure the public. Our focus does remain and committed to doing the right thing. We're not going away. We're going to be here until it's returned back to the way it was. We're fortunate to have the many fine individuals from Unified Command, the residents who are outpouring support to assist us in this. And we will remain committed to doing the right thing. Today, I'm here to provide a few updates to our progress over the evening and our planned response activities. Following that, we would like to address some of the misinformation that you may have heard out there in the media. First, I would like to take a moment to address our safety and environmental culture at Plains. Safety is not just a priority, it's actually a core value at Plains. Priorities can change, but values cannot, and that's extremely important. We are continuously striving to improve our performance. We have a very active operational excellence program dedicated to improving our performance, our safety and reliability of our assets. And since 2007, we have spent over $1.3 billion to maintain, repair, and enhance the integrity of our assets. Since that time, we have constructed over 2,300 miles of new pipeline without incident. Plains is also committed to acting as a good steward of this environment. We continue our commitment to safe, environmentally responsible operations through extensive and ongoing education, training, as well as investment in many equipment, systems, processes, and other resources. Again, Plains is a member of this community. Our employees live in the communities and participate in many of the activities that we enjoy here in the state of California. And we're going to continue to be here. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Rick McMichael, our Senior Director of Operations at Plains All-American Pipeline, to start addressing the recovery efforts since last night. Thank you.
Oil recovery. We were given clearance last night from the Department of Transportation to begin excavation around the pipeline, and we've removed 90 feet of contaminated soil in the area of the release. We anticipate that we have about 300 more feet of soil to remove from around the pipeline. Overnight, we filled 33 large bins with contaminated soil from the area near the pipeline leak. We also filled 2 containers yesterday with contaminated beach material. This morning, we will begin cleaning the culvert around Highway 101. As a result, there will be a northbound lane closure to accommodate this cleanup. We anticipate our recovery rates today to increase dramatically, as we are placing more than 300 cleanup personnel on the beach and 20 personnel to assist with excavation around the pipeline. Finally, to address some misinformation that's been reported about the pipeline's flow rate during the incident. Line 901 was not operating at capacity before or during the release. The line has a maximum flow rate of 2,000 barrels per hour, which is a function of the maximum pumping capacity. Prior to the release, it was operating at 1,300 barrels per hour, well below its maximum operating capacity. Finally, I'd like to remind you that the latest information on the response efforts can be found at www.refugioresponse.com. Media can also make direct inquiries at this site. For those who have general questions or who would like to submit a claim, they can call our claims line at 866-753-3619. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Takashi Michael Wada, Santa Barbara County Public Health.
Great, thank you, and good morning. My name is Dr. Takashi Wada, spelled T-A-K-A-S-H-I. Last name is Wada, W-A-D-A. So again, our role, along with the partner agencies, is to ensure the safety of the public's health. We continue with air and water testing in the affected and surrounding areas. There remain some petroleum odors in some of the areas, but again, these are generally harmless and they do not indicate that anyone will experience any health effects from those odors. Those individuals, if they are exposed at higher concentrations or for prolonged periods of time, can experience mild symptoms like headaches, dizziness, some nausea. But again, they're generally harmless. We have not detected any concentrations of harmful substances that would be a health concern in the nearby communities and surrounding areas. However, Low-level detections of volatile organic compounds in the air at the location of the spill have been detected. This is to be expected because of the cleanup and excavations, which would disrupt and aerosolize those types of compounds into the air. This is even more reason why individuals from the general public should not go into those areas to assist with the cleanup, no matter how well-meaning they are. Please follow the directions that were provided previously in terms of volunteer opportunities. In terms of health impacts, again, there are three that we're concerned about. One is direct contact with the oil, which can cause skin irritation. Two is the inhalation of fumes. Breathing them in for extended periods of time can cause headaches, dizziness, nausea, eye, nose, throat irritation, and respiratory difficulties, particularly in those who are sensitive to these chemicals. Three, ingestion of contaminated fish and seafood can cause illness. In terms of any further beach closures due to potential public health risks, this is again something that we're monitoring very closely. These decisions are based on many factors. Some are objective, such as visual information that there's oil in the water in the immediate vicinity of a beach or along the shoreline. There's also the data that we monitor from all of our water and air quality testing. And there are also subjective measures in addition. This includes, for example, the strength or prominence of any petroleum odors that may cause symptoms. So again, these decisions on beach closures are made at the Emergency Operations Center under Unified Command. We monitor the spread of the oil. If it does move in any particular direction, we would certainly work with that jurisdiction. The city of Goleta has been present all along, and so if it does move in that direction, they would certainly be involved with any type of impacts to the beach there for health reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We now have time, about 10 minutes for questions. Again, I'd ask you if you have a question, please step to the microphone and pose your question that way. Please include your agency and your name before.
Captain Williams, fast question for you, Woodward. How far has that slick spread, and is the oil in any way coming into any of the beaches south of where it is right now?
I did an overflight this morning. And, the oil continues to dissipate, spread out as you would expect on water. It has not really gone much further south, and it is going offshore, and it's spreading out, which will make it a little bit more difficult to collect.
Not on any of the beaches south of El Capitan at this point?
At this point, I don't think we have any on south of El Capitan, but we've got shoreline assessment teams out. And they're tasked with that today to check, to make sure, to verify that there's no further impact. We'll continue to monitor that.
Patrick, I got one for you if you don't mind stepping to the mic. Thanks. There's new reports out questioning the safety record of Pipeline that you guys have 3 times the rate of safety infractions than the national average. Are you comfortable with that safety record?
I don't have that information, but what I can tell you is we are committed to continuously improve our safety and excellence program across all of Plains.
Have more safety infractions than Plains All-American. What kind of changes should the company be making?
We continue to reassess. We're constantly we're working on programs to improve our safety and environmental excellence programs. We're one of the largest pipeline operators in the United States, and we continually work on improving that program.
Patrick, Sarah from CNN. Can I ask you a question? Just how much oil has been spilled into our oceans, and furthermore to the question that was asked there, how do you explain the record of your company when it comes to spills and problems that you've had, which far exceeds many other companies?
Again, as far as how much has been spilled into the ocean, I believe the number is somewhere around 500 barrels. We're continuing to assess that. It's still under investigation. And our focus today has been on the response to this incident. I'll be happy to follow up with you later to address other concerns you may have.
This is very important. You want us to take it from right now into the future. It's very important to look back at the past as well. Has your company, in the past few years, been acting properly as far as trying to avoid any safety problems or problems like we've seen now?
We continually look at safety as being our primary focus in the operation of our equipment.
But would you agree that your company has had more than its fair share of spills?
Again, we continually operate. We move quite a bit of product across the United States, and we continually work with PHMSA, our regulatory agency, to ensure we provide a safe and reliable movement of product.
But Patrick, do you think that answer satisfies people in this community?
So just to reiterate the ground rules, we'll do one question and one follow-up per agency. I understand, sir, but maybe we don't have the information available in front of us, and it's something that we can get to you after this press briefing.
Linda Kropp, Environmental Defense Center. Thank you all for being here and for your response. We are concerned that oil was allowed to enter the ocean from onshore. We heard today that about 3,000 feet of boom has been deployed for a slick this large. That seems less than adequate to actually contain and then recover the oil. So wondering what your plans are for total boom employment.
So the tactics on the water for boom deployment, it varies, and it would be practicable to have a boom that spreads the entire length of the shoreline. They have concentrated their areas based on the overflights and where they're identifying, pinpointing where the oil is. They'll go out with pairs of vessels with boom in between, try to collect the oil in there and skim it up. It's a moving target when you're talking about oil on the water. It's a very difficult process. But as we had reported before, we should have 18 oil spill response vessels on the water today. That's up from yesterday. We'll have more responders on the beach collecting oil from the beach, and in hopes that we can really make some progress.
So is the 3,000 the total, or are you still bringing in more boom?
Every day that we have 3,000 on scene, and I'm not sure if we have plans for tomorrow, how much it will go up, but it really depends on how many vessels we have out there and how much boom that we have to deploy. You can't just deploy the boom without the boats, so it's constrained by what kind of assets you have on scene, what kind of equipment you have on scene, and the personnel that can operate that.
Betty Yu, CBS San Francisco. This is for the pipeline operator. If you can't speak to the specific number of incidents, how do you rate your regulatory record overall?
So let me clarify that a little bit more. So we're required to fill out certain federal documents to report all incidents. We have a tolerance of zero tolerance for failure to report. We report all incidents, regardless of they're required to be reported or not. So that gives, you got to put it in context, we report all incidents, including all near misses, which do not have a negative impact. And the purpose of that is so that we can learn so that we don't have an incident that does have a negative impact. So again, I would like to put it in context. We report all incidents regardless if it's required or not. And if you looked at the over the years, the scrutiny and the requirement to report more and more incidents of lesser volume, where at one time it was 5 barrels, it's now down to 5 gallons. But again, if it gets on the ground, we do require it to be reported.
But how do you rate your record?
Again, our goal is to continue to improve. Our goal is zero. And so we're going to continue to improve. We're not happy unless it's zero. So that is our focus.
Are you happy?
Yes, sir. So we may not have the information available now. We have limited time for questions, and we want to make sure that everybody, as many people as possible, can get a question. We will have a representative from Plains that can stay behind and help facilitate those questions with everybody here today. We just we have very limited time. We really actually have time for about 2 more questions before we move on. So, sir, did you have a question?
I'm Steve Gorman with Reuters. I want to know if you can tell us whether the cleanup is likely going to be a matter of weeks or months for it to be completed, and also whether the oil that's on the water right now, whether in all likelihood most of it will end up being sunk to the bottom of the ocean rather than being skimmed off the surface.
So the cleanup operations generally do take time, and you may see some progress early on, maybe in the first week or 2, where you can actually see progress being made on the beach. But these types of things continue on, perhaps even for months, making sure that the environment is restored to its original condition. That's something that the responsible party, they're required to continue to be here and take responsibility for. And as regulators, as the federal on-scene coordinator and the state on-scene coordinator and the local on-scene coordinator, we have interest to ensure that that happens. We'll be here as long as it takes to make sure that it's restored to its original condition. As far as the fuel and the water, the oil and the water, yes, some will naturally dissipate, some will emulsify and go subsurface. These are all things that we have to consider when we're deciding how to collect this water and recover the oil that's in the water. It's very difficult, and it's something that we have to look at daily. You know, how is it changing? How can we best recover this oil?
And can you just have wildlife-sensitive areas where they've been invaded yet by oil? Any nesting areas or known rookeries or breeding grounds or nesting grounds have already been invaded or hit by oil or being immediately threatened by oil, either on the beach or offshore?
I'm not aware of any nesting areas that are immediately impacted, although there are certainly some that potentially could be. And we're taking steps even today to try to prevent that from occurring. So a lot of defensive measures are being put in place to take care of that. And hopefully those measures will take hold and prevent any damage to any nesting areas.
Folks, we have time for one more question, one more follow-up.
Hi, my name is Francie Deep. I'm from Pacific Standard. Could you talk about what's going to happen with the oily soil and water that you've gathered? Where is it going to go? What are you going to do with it?
With regard to the soils, those soils will be collected, they will be classified, and they will be taken to the appropriate disposal site based on their classification.
What are the possible classifications?
The classifications have to do with the amount of saturation with crude oil, and disposal sites are rated for that amount of saturation, so we'll have to pick the appropriate site depending on the material.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out. For those of you who may have a follow-up question, Mr. John McCormick is here. He can help coordinate getting you the information that you need. Meredith from Plains, spokesperson from Plains, raise your hand, Meredith. She's also here, and she can help follow up with any questions. Again, we really thank you for coming out, telling the story, and helping us keep the community and the people here safe. Thank you very much.